Hey, family, friends, and everyone out there. It is 2021, officially January 2nd, 2021. And I just want to say what a year 2020 was for me and my family and our projects that we've all been doing. But I gotta admit, I kind of slacked a lot on some of my creativity. Really focused on the podcast this past year, which has been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of people engaging with that, and we are slowly and steadily growing it continuously. We just recently hit our 2 years with that project. So that is just, it's awesome to see all the things that are happening in that realm. I didn't do as much photography this year as I wanted to do. So, this year I think I'm going to focus a lot on photography and just generally being more creative as a person. The Habeas Corpses podcast is going wonderfully. I also want to start another podcast that's not geared totally towards 100% horror movie stuff. I kind of want to be able to talk freely and openly about political topics, things that are going on in the world, science, and stuff of that nature. So look for that to come soon in 2021. Also, we now have two extra rooms in our home. We had someone living with us for a period of time and they have vacated, they've left. And so now we have an actual room dedicated towards our podcasts, and that's going to be this room that I'm in right now. Currently, it's not 100% near 100% what I want it to be, but it's getting there. I got some new gear that I'm going to be buying and purchasing to take our podcasting level and production value higher than it currently is. And right now, I mean, I think it sounds very, very well done. I've learned a lot over the past couple of years about podcasts and audio and such. I've also been getting into recording my own music. I've always been a musician since I was like 13 when I picked up a guitar, but I never really got into the recording aspect of things. It's always just been noodling around. And big shout out to Alex Heinerman. This past week, we actually did kind of like a rough recording on GarageBand, all in the span of a couple hours late at night. And we got something that's, I mean, it doesn't sound super professional or anything, but for GarageBand and just putting it together real quick, it was a lot of fun. So I do plan on doing some more in the music realm of recording, but majorly I want to focus on more photography again, really focusing on that because it's been a passion of mine for quite some time, and I feel I didn't do as much of it due to COVID and all of that social distancing, but I want to really get into that this year, and I want to further push this Habeas Corpses podcast along, and also, again, like I said, get involved in another podcast that I'm currently in the creative mind stage of how I can put this together. Another thing I want to do is start doing a lot more video content like this, especially showing you guys like what the studio looks like and doing like exploration of certain spooky places, things of that nature. I think that would be a lot of fun. In fact, we actually went to one today. And what I want to show you is like in the studio, we have a little, almost like a chroma key green screen that I used years and years ago when I was doing the Horror Junkies of Utah and Monday Movie Madnesses. I always loved putting like photographs behind me while I was doing those of the movies. So we got a green screen that we're going to have a little fun with the Habeas Corpses stuff. And we went on a little adventure today to a creepy location. We weren't able to actually visit the grave that I wanted to show you all, but we did get some film footage, and I visited the grave before, so we're going to kind of talk about that. So without further ado, let's check out what the green screen does for us and talk about this spooky location. So, what was our first location? Salt Lake City Cemetery, of course. If you're from Salt Lake County or live anywhere in Utah, this is a cemetery you need to just go visit. The historical significance, the amount of notable people buried in the cemetery, the architecture, the graves, everything is so artistic and beautiful and really quite peaceful within the cemetery itself. When I was straight out of high school, I worked at a cemetery for about 3-4 months during the summer, and you know, it was cool, but it was one of those cemeteries where every gravestone laid flat, kind of a little boring to me. Just, it didn't give that artistic quality, which to me, I find graveyards to be fascinating with sculptures, architecture, things of that nature. But Salt Lake City Cemetery has it all. It's got every type of cool, religious, non-religious, whatever, architecture, art, things of that nature. So I highly recommend you visit the cemetery. But there's a lot of notable graves in there too. A lot of ghost stories. One of the graves we visited today is probably the most notorious of the cemetery, but one that I find that a lot of people don't really know about, and that's the grave of Lilly E. Now, we were able to drive past the grave, but we didn't get out of our vehicle. Why? Well, you're not supposed to be in there right now. Unbeknownst to us, Salt Lake City Cemetery is actually closed due to a massive windstorm that happened. There are trees knocked down everywhere in the cemetery. Crews are working to cut them up, get rid of them, and it's so sad to see the destruction that the windstorm of 2020 it ravaged the cemetery. I was honestly surprised. I remember hearing on the news that the windstorm did a little bit of damage here and there, you know, but the cemetery itself, utterly devastated. Old trees all over the place, ground ripped up, and that windstorm was, 4 or 5 months ago? I believe it took place in August. Still, the crews of that cemetery, they have a huge job ahead of them, and we've seen them working on it, so we know they're going as fast as they can, and they're doing what they can. But man, the cemetery literally looks 100 times different than when I seen it. It looked like a war zone. Honestly, their gravestones toppled. Luckily, Lilly E. her gravesite, isn't touched in the aspect of being destroyed by this windstorm. But we still didn't get out of the vehicle because we didn't know what was permissible and not. It says do not enter unless you're there for a graveyard service. There were a few other cars driving around in the area, but I was just like, I don't want to get out and do filming and stuff because I don't want to be, trespassed or whatever. So I do have some prior photos that I'm going to show you guys of Lilly E. grave site. Now, Lilly E. Grave's site is famous and notorious in Salt Lake County and kind of a little bit abroad for its inscription on the grave. It literally says, Lilly E. Grave, her birthday, her death date, then victim of the beast, 666. It's a little sinister when you're standing above the grave. People come from around Utah and around the United States, and quite honestly, probably around the globe, to leave little artifacts, things on her gravestone. Not much is known about the actual Lilly E. Gray, though. She was married to an Elmer Gray who had a little bit of a criminal past, but when you dig it up, there's not too much that would indicate any occult, any crazy stuff going on. So why does the inscription actually sit on top of that gravestone? It's kind of a mystery. People have pointed one way and the other. People have come up with their own theories. Astral Crowley's been thrown in there, the Satanic Panic, things of that nature. But honestly, no one really knows why the inscription sits on the gravestone. That's what makes it so interesting. It's something that we probably will never know. You can go and research some websites, and people have done great jobs in looking up the past of the Lilly and looking up the fact that she had a twin sister, she was married once before, means that, you know, that luckily through records they were able to find. But when it comes to the inscription on the gravestone, it still to this day kind of sits at a mystery, which in that kind of makes it a little creepy. Makes it creepy to stand there and look down upon. So if you're from Salt Lake County or anywhere in Utah and you're stopping in Salt Lake City anytime, I recommend you visit Lilly E. Gray's grave and get that little sinister chill on your spine as you look down upon that inscription. Now, that being said, we'll do more of these videos in the future. I wish I could have gotten out of the vehicle and showed this to you, but just for my sake and my family's sake, we didn't.